Lakers are hiring JJ Redick to a 4-year deal to coach the team, according to Woj. Redick, obviously an ESPN analyst who played 15 years in the league, met with Lakers VP and general manager Rob Pelinka and owner Jeannie Buss over the weekend. Pelinka became sold on Redick's ability to connect with the players, his basketball IQ, and wants to surround him with an elite coaching staff. Here's our very own Michael Wilbon on expectations.
He walks into the most unrealistic pressures in the NBA. There are more unrealistic expectations surrounding the Lakers than any team, I think, in North America. They're the most arrogant fan base, and JJ Redick has no experience as a coach. There have been some veteran coaches who got run out of town. They don't remember what happened this morning, so he walks into the lion's den. He does.
If anyone can handle the lion's den, I think it's JJ. He seems pretty unshakable. Despite zero coaching experience at the professional or collegiate level, JJ becomes the Lakers' 8th different head coach since Phil Jackson retired in 2011. Of the previous 7, only 2 lasted more than 2 seasons. All right, tight rope right there. Wendy, your thoughts on this hiring?
That's a really good word, Molly, that you just used, unshakable. I would agree with you. I do think that's his temperament. And I think that was honed through years of, frankly, being hated. He was one of the most hated players in college, even though he was a brilliant player for Duke. And so I do think that should serve him well. But this is really a bet on potential. The Lakers just didn't think that the menu of options for established coaches was that favorable. There are some years when there's a bunch of coaches available, some years when there's not. I would have thought that would have played into their decision to fire Darvin Ham, but they decided to really go outside the box here. And I think they needed to go outside the box because they didn't like what was available right there. And so what you often see in the NBA is 2 general types of coaches. Obviously there's crossovers, but there's general types of coaches. You have former players who are motivators, who are relationship builders, and you have guys who are more analysts. There's this big trend over the last 20 years of guys coming up for the film room or the developmental side. JJ crosses both. He's sort of a hybrid coach. He obviously is, similar to age in these as these players. He's sort of a peer still of them, but he's a very analytical mind, very focused on modern trends, very focused on the modern way basketball is played. And so what the Lakers are wagering in is that this is the best of both worlds, and that will overcome what is obviously the big giant hole in his resume, which is the lack of experience.
I mean, first and foremost, I want to congratulate JJ. Shout outs, congratulations to you, my brother. Hell of a job. But I'm going to say this. You got your coach, but what about the roster? I mean, I don't think the Lakers have a championship roster. I mean, JJ could draw up the annexation of Puerto Rico. It doesn't matter what he puts out there. They do not have a championship roster. So when you look at this roster, what you going to do with D-Lo? That's 47% from the field, 41% from 3, 19 points a game.
Yeah.
Do you have a championship roster? So, yes, you got your coaching line. You got Braun for 2 more years. They have championship expectations. How do you get that roster in line and put yourself in a position? Because the West ain't letting up. The young guys ain't letting up. They only getting better. They're getting stronger. They're getting more confident. So that's what I think about the roster. Yeah, you have your coach. We understand JJ has a great basketball mind. I think he's going to do a hell of a job, but it's going to take time to build that trust and build that brotherhood in that locker room. But you have to get the roster in order.
Perk?
Look, let me say this. Congratulations to JJ. I actually texted him yesterday and told him congratulations. I wanted to tell him publicly congratulations. Okay, we got that out the way. Do I believe that JJ Redick is a brilliant basketball mind? I do. Do I know he knows the X's and O's of the game? Absolutely. We talk about the analytics. He got that. That's a checkbox. But the only checkbox that he's going to have to prove and is going to have to earn is the checkbox of gathering and getting the attention of their locker room. You got to have the ears. You got to have the ears. I heard UD talking about this earlier on Get Up, where he was talking about, we're talking about a new generation, right? We're talking about a new wave where guys are always constantly worried about things that they cannot control. They cannot control. We just watched a young Joe Mazzulla win the championship at the age of 35. Right? We know he had his system in place. Whether we agreed or not, it worked, right? The three-point shooting. But I'm also hearing the stories and seeing the stories of him having those special relationships with his players. Derek White has talked about, like, for us, how he's been a positive influence outside of the lines. That's what JJ is going to have to do. When you talk about that locker room, the most important piece in that locker room is Anthony Davis, a guy that is in the middle of his prime, a guy that we know to be injury prone, has an injury prone history. So at the end of the day, we saw what Darvin Ham got out of Anthony Davis. He had two of his best years of his career under Darvin Ham on both ends of the floor. We go back to 2 years ago when they had to make that second half push to get into the postseason. That was led by Anthony Davis. So what is JJ going to do better? Is the Lakers and JJ Redick finally ready to fully hand the keys over to Anthony Davis, or is he going to continue to try to drive the car from the passenger seat? That's going to be the thing that I keep my eye on.
While we can sit here and talk about what we think JJ can be as a head coach, it's all just, we're making educated guesses. Lakers are making educated guesses. The reason that Joe Mazzulla was able to be so successful right out of the gates in Boston was because his roster was great. You know, we saw two transactions in the NBA yesterday. Two big transactions. JJ getting hired and Alex Caruso getting traded to the Thunder from the Bulls. And with all due respect to JJ, the thing that the Lakers need more than a head coach is players like Alex Caruso. Like, if they had not hired a head coach yesterday and announced that they had acquired Alex Caruso, that would have been a bigger day for the Lakers, because that's what they're missing. They're missing players like that. And here's the reality. That banner from 2020, it cannot be taken down. I will defend a team winning a championship till the sun goes down on the longest day of the year. That's how long I'll defend a team that's won a championship. But the Lakers have not been able to maintain a high-quality roster. They have got one time in the last 12 years they finished in the top 6. Once. And I know that they've made some runs out of the play-in. And obviously the bubble championship was tremendous on a number of fronts. But they haven't consistently been able to build a roster that works. They're constantly playing from behind. So I will say, while this is a day for JJ Redick, and soon we will hear from him when he talks about what his vision is, when he talks about what he wants to do with the roster or with the team, that's all important. But what Rob Pelinka does over the next 3 weeks building this team is significantly more important than what he's done the last 3 weeks.
UD, before you jump in, Wendy, I just want to point out here really quickly, too. JJ sat on the show, and we used to joke about how much we would talk about the Lakers. And obviously this wasn't this past season, and how much we would talk about the Lakers and the roster. And he would talk about all the issues with that roster and that it's a top-heavy roster. So if anybody's aware of those challenges, it's certainly him, because I spoke to him about it ad nauseum right on the show.
Now, Perk, I just wanted to follow up with you and piggyback off what you said, being the locker room and the generation of today. They have to like you. You have to lead this generation with love. You have to build a relationship with this generation to get the best version of them. There was a time when you and I played, and you remember, it was a coaching philosophy where if I can get all these guys mad at me, at least they on the same page and at least they together. Well, you get them mad at you and you get them on the same page and get them together, they're going to get your ass out of there because it's a players' league. So you have to build that relationship and you have to build that rapport with these guys in the locker room. So that is the challenge that JJ is going to have. But there's no coach that's coming in with a perfect resume. Every coach is going to have a challenge. JJ has a different challenge.
I agree. And look, here's the thing, right? We got to ask ourselves realistically, what's the expectations for the Lakers?
Yep.
And the expectations for the Lakers, as long as you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis, is championship or bust. We're talking about one of the most historical franchises in sports in the Los Angeles Lakers. They're all about hanging banners. Especially when you got those two guys.
I gotta pause you right now, because that's where I wanted to take the conversation. So I'm glad you led us there as far as expectations, because that's how we grade how successful he is. But Perk, you're gonna look at me and tell me right now that you think this upcoming season with the West as it stands, it's championship or bust for the Lakers?
Well, Molly, I'm not picking them to win the championship, but what I'm saying is every single time LeBron James steps foot on the basketball court, what is a successful season for a LeBron James-led team? It's championships, right? Because
I mean,
it can't just be
yesterday on the
making
show,
the playoffs.
somebody said just make the playoffs. And that's really what the expectation was for JJ and this team, to just make the playoffs.
Perk.
Oh, okay, cool.
Perk.
So
Perk.
when you have a guy that's considered in the GOAT conversation of one of the greatest players of all time, now the expectations fall a little bit lower. Now it's just making the playoffs. They did that last year. They did this past season. When it comes to just making the playoffs, they could have kept Darvin Ham. At the end of the day, it comes down to when you put a coach in that seat and you have those two guys, it's all about winning the championship if you're the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't see no in between.
There's two ways you can look at that. There's winning, there's expectations, and there's reality and realistic expectations. I think the Lakers fans, they're a little unrealistic with their expectations. I think the Lakers as a team and as an organization, with the coach coming in with no experience, obviously LeBron being 40, having to rebuild your roster, what's you going to do with D'Lo? I think they have to have realistic expectations.
Yeah. And what do you think a realistic expectation is,
Let me
Windy, before
ask
you
you a
jump in
question.
here? Real quick, Windy, before you jump in here, Udonis,
me
what
ask
do you
you
think?
guys
So realistic expectation.
Expectation for me is they've been in the play-in. You know what I'm saying? They've been a play-in team. I see them around that 7 seed, possibly a 6 seed at the biggest. Getting through the first round, but I don't know if they go beyond that.
Let me
The
ask you
West
guys a
getting better.
question.
The West getting better
If
now. Let's not
LeBron-
forget that.
if-